Hello Legionnaires, and welcome to another character creation video. This video continues my 4-part series that dives into the character creation process for Free League Publishing's Mutant series. Mutant Year Zero, Mutant Gen Lab Alpha, Mutant Mechatron, and Mutant Elysium. Please note, the characters I create are all organically created and viable within the spirit of the game. I do not focus on optimization, nor do I cater to the whole Plagans type nonsense. Additionally, this video is strictly a character creation video. It is not a game mechanics, setting, or game lore video. I will not dive down those rabbit holes, as much as possible, in this video. This character creation process is similar for all 4 of the Mutant Year Zero games, as each game is intended to be compatible and used with the others. If you watched the previous videos where I made characters for Mutant Year Zero and Mutant Gen Lab Alpha, there will definitely be some similarities. With that said, there are some striking differences when it comes to building a mutant Mechatron robot when compared to creating a mutant human or animal. If you like these character creation videos and want to see more of them, please troubleshoot that like button and leave a substantive comment below. Please be sure to subscribe to Legion Myth for more tabletop RPG videos and to be notified of our Twitch and YouTube live streams. You can see our current schedule, as of the date of this recording, on the screen now. I look forward to chatting with you there. Alright, let's begin. In Mutant Mechatron, character creation is a simple 12-step assembly line where each step builds upon the previous one. In Mechatron, step 10 is the one that takes the most time because it is dependent upon collaboration with the other players at the table. With that said, once you understand the simple but effective Year Zero engine rules, you can easily make a character in 5 to 10 minutes, tops. So let's look at these 12 steps. First, choose your robot's model. Pick a name, choose the robot's chassis parts and calculate attribute dice, distribute program dice, choose one secondary function based on the character's model, choose a number of modules based on the character's chassis parts, determine the character's hierarchy score, choose an appearance, choose your personality, define the character's relationship with the other PCs in the group as well as with 2 NPCs, choose the character's big dream, and choose an item. It's a pretty simple assembly line, but it does come with a lot of options when compared to the other Mutant Year Zero games. So let's get rolling with step 1. In step 1, you choose the robot's model, which defines its purpose. This is the same as a mutant's role in Mutant Year Zero and Mutant Gen Lab Alpha. Interestingly, the robot's model is the only aspect of the robot that cannot be replaced. All other components are replaceable during the course of the game. It's good to be a robot. As a player character, there are 8 models from which to choose, and each model comes with its own unique special program, as well as a list of 3 secondary functions from which the starting player character can choose one. For the robot's model, I selected Security Robot. As a security robot, the robot's special program is Protect. Protect is the ability to potentially take damage meant for another character. At this point, let's process step 2 and name the character. Now, robot names consist of a nickname, think of that as a human name, and an alphanumeric serial number that consists of 3 letters followed by 3 numbers. I went ahead and named this robot Fritz, NEC-099. If you catch the reference, go ahead and throw it in the comments.
Fritz, get up, for God's sake, get up! They've killed Fritz! They've killed Fritz!
Now that I know the model of the robot and its name, it's time to build the chassis. Each robot consists of 3 chassis parts, a head, a torso, and an undercarriage. You will need to select one of each. Each chassis part has its own particular set of functionality. The robot's attribute scores, module slots, and armor rating come from the 3 chassis parts selected. As a side note, chances are you'll be playing Mutant Mechatron with a number of other players who are also trying to build their robots. In these instances, only one player can have a particular chassis part, so you may have to do some negotiating and bartering at the table to get the chassis parts you want. Mutant Mechatron robots have 4 attributes: servos, stability, processor, and network. When compared to the core Mutant Year Zero game, servos is the robot's name for strength, stability is the robot name for agility, processor is the robot name for wits, and network is the robot name for empathy. These attributes form the base of the character's skills and actions, where each attribute point indicates 1 6-sided die. For example, a player character with a servos attribute rating of 5 rolls 5 base dice when attempting a feat of strength. A character with a processor attribute rating of 2 rolls 2 base dice when performing a feat of wits. For Fritz, I selected the following 3 parts. Fritz's head is the Odessa Vega 1.5, which provides our security bot servos attribute score of 2 dice, stability attribute score of 1 die, processor attribute score of 1 die, network attribute score of no dice, 1 module slot, and an armor rating of 3 dice. Fritz's body is the Ganymede Nava PRS. This body provides Fritz with servos attribute score of 2 dice, stability attribute score of 2 dice, processor attribute score of no dice, network attribute score of 1 die, 1 module slot, and an armor rating of 3 dice. Finally, Fritz's undercarriage is the Methuselah Mod 12, which provides a servo attribute score of 1 die, stability attribute score of 2 dice, processor attribute score of 1 die, network attribute score of 1 die, no modules, and an armor rating of 3 dice. When we assemble the 3 chassis parts together, we have Fritz's final attribute scores of 5 dice in servos, 5 dice in stability, 2 dice in processor, and 2 dice in network. Included with this are 2 module slots and an overall armor rating of 9. That's incredible. Anytime the robot's armor fails to protect the robot from damage, that damage reduces an attribute rating. Thus, the amount of dice the player rolls to perform actions is reduced. Robots don't heal like mutants. They must be repaired. On the other hand, it is possible to replace chassis parts and modules. Just be sure to annotate all the changes as well as everything those changes imply to your character. So perhaps now is a good time to look at the character sheet. Like with the Mutant Year Zero character sheet, this fillable version of the Mutant Mechatron character sheet might be a bit difficult to read. But on this sheet here, we have the character's model, name, chassis parts, attribute, and armor rating. You can't see it here, but I did write in the Protect program into the programs list as well. You'll see that when I cover programs in Step 4. So why don't we do that now? There are 12 basic programs in the game, 3 programs for each of the 4 attributes. Any robot can learn these 12 basic programs. There's also one additional program, a special program, which is determined by the robot's model. This special program can only be learned by a robot of that specific model. This gives every robot character a total of 13 programs to use in the game. If you've not played a Year Zero engine game before, know that these 13 programs, which if you haven't figured it out by now, are the robot's version of skills. But these 13 programs really do cover any action you may want to perform. Each point in a program indicates 1 6-sided die. These program dice are added to the character's attribute dice when rolling to determine the success or failure of an action. Starting robot characters have 10 points to spread between the 13 programs. There are only 3 rules with regard to spending these program points. You may only spend a total of 0 to 3 points on any individual program. You must put a minimum of 1 point into the character's specialist program, and you may spend a total of 10 points across all 13 programs. Fritz is the strong silent type, with processors focused on safety, security, and maintaining good order and discipline. When provided a security task, Fritz performs very well. Just don't ask it to solve the mysteries of the universe. I put a point into the Overload program, which is robot endurance, as well as the Force program, which is the robotic form of a feat of strength. Along with move and repair, these programs lay the groundwork for how I visualize the robot more so in the future than on day one. You may question the 1 point into the repair program since he only has 2 attribute dice to go with the 1 program die. Maybe it's paranoia, or maybe it's because I know none of the other characters in this group have the skill to repair Fritz, but I'd prefer a small chance for Fritz to repair himself than no chance. Okay, let's look at the better programs. The Assault program allows Fritz to fight, something you probably want your security robot to be able to do. And the Shoot program allows Fritz, NEC-099, to protect its charge at range. Finally, as mentioned previously, the security robot model's special program is Protect. This special program allows the robot to potentially take damage that was intended for another character. Now we get to pick a secondary function. Secondary functions are described as minor abilities that give the character a slight advantage in the game. When assembling a brand new robot, I get to choose one secondary function from a list of 3 provided by the security robot model. The 3 options are Arm Lock, which gives the character a bonus to grappling, Command Override, which makes the character immune to the manipulation skill, and Sirens, which are police lights and sirens. I so wanted to choose Sirens, just to be able to sit at the table going, woo, 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 woo. However, I decided that because Fritz isn't the fastest processor to come off the assembly line, I'd go with Command Override. That way, once he's been given his orders, someone can't just come by and sweet talk him into looking the other way. At least, that's the hope. Someone may argue that Command Override has no use against other robots, so it's useless for a starting character prepared to play the Mechatron prequel story. This is true, especially considering the character starts in Mechatron 7 with only other robots, and has the ability to learn new secondary functions with experience, scrap, and time. On the other hand, I'm making this character as the member of a group that includes 2 mutants and a normal human. I guess what I'll say is I'm visualizing this character past the intro story and into the zone already. None of that takes away from this step-by-step process, only you may choose different programs and secondary functions for your character. Here we are in step 6, where I pick Fritz NEC-099's modules. There are 25 modules listed in the core Mutant Mechatron book, but how many of those 25 does this robot receive? The Odessa Vega 1.5 head gives Fritz 1 module slot, and the Ganymede Nava PRS torso provides 1 more module slot. However, the Methuselah Mod 12 undercarriage does not come with a module slot, so Fritz starts the game with 2 module slots. As a security robot, Fritz is designed to protect its charge. In order to do that, Fritz needs to remain operational. Electromagnetic pulse, or EMP, is an all too common method to render a robot useless, so let's get Fritz some EMP protection. EMP protection is a reactive module, so it will work anytime Fritz suffers EMP attack, as long as he has an energy point to spend to activate the module. I really was interested in the control circuit and repair system modules, but I selected backup system instead. At full operating capacity, Fritz has a score of 5 base dice in the servo's attribute. But let's say he's been roughed up a bit, so right now Fritz's servo's attribute is reduced to 1 base die. This is a 4 dice difference. 4 dice less than Fritz's fully functional state. That's a devastating degradation to any attempt to run a program. With the backup systems module, Fritz can spend 1 energy point to roll the base attribute dice as if he was at full operating capacity. This means the player rolls all 5 of Fritz's fully armed and operational servos dice instead of just 1 die. Backup systems also allows Fritz to spend 1 energy point to temporarily restore a broken attribute. I think those 2 modules provide Fritz NEC-099 the extra survivability that makes sense for the character. A properly functioning robot understands it is a cog in the great machine and knows its place in the hierarchy of Mechatron 7. When a robot higher in the hierarchy gives you a command, you will obey. When you give a command to a robot lower in the hierarchy, it will obey. At least, that's how it's supposed to work. This position in the hierarchy is represented by a hierarchy score. As a security robot, Fritz NEC-099 has a hierarchy score of 4, which is the second highest hierarchy rating a PC robot can have. Only the coordination robot has a higher rating. Now it's time to decide on the appearance for old Fritz. The first thing to consider are the chassis parts. What kind of design do they make? You know what? Who cares? Fritz is going to have thick armor molded, riveted, or otherwise attached to those items, so let's see what we can come up with. I picture Fritz as a heavy design, probably not overly large as there's no need for that, but certainly one that is dense, worthy of the title security robot. I don't know why this image just jumped in my head, but if you've ever watched the old Doctor Who series and know what a Sontaran looks like, well, that's kind of how I envision Fritz NEC-099. Just add a few more hard, straight lines to give Fritz a more robot feel. When we first meet Fritz, its used and abused chassis and armor parts are gussied up with a nice coat of gunmetal paint, some white corporate markings, and nice, shiny chrome for the pincers, the robot's pseudo fingers, and knees. That pristine look won't last long, so let's just best not to ask how he acquired it. When Fritz communicates, the synthesized voice is a hybrid between Darth Vader and RoboCop, much more metallic than Darth Vader, bit more imposing than RoboCop. Step 9 is about the self-aware personality. Fritz is a robot of few words, not a conversationalist. When following orders or performing duties, Fritz talks in authoritative tones and terse statements, even when asking questions. Affirmative, negative, roger, and other military and paramilitary jargon makes up the majority of the robot's lexicon. Fritz is not quick to share any feelings, and some may wonder if the robot even has any. Alright, so here we are at step 10, and this is where the collaboration with the other players is important. Once again, I'm compelled to say I love this step, and I wish every game incorporated something like it. In step 10, you develop a relationship between your robot and each of the other player characters in the group, as well as with 2 non-player characters. When you select your robot's model, there are a few example relationships provided. However, personally, I'm a fan of players discussing and coming up with their own relationships. This relationship is usually only one sentence, not some crazy long backstory, and can be as vague or as specific as the game master allows. Remember, this is a tool to facilitate role-playing. Like all relationships in life, it can, and probably will, change over time. As you can see, I created relationships between Fritz NEC-099 and 3 example player characters. Josephus, a mutant human chronicler from Mutineer Zero, Fanny 05, a mutant squirrel scavenger from Mutant GenLab Alpha, and Kayala, a Fortescue officer from Mutant Elysium. After Fritz, Fanny, and Kayala complete what I call the prequel adventures provided in their respective books, they can join Josephus in the zone and adventure together. I chose Kayala as Fritz's buddy because he sees her as a new hope for a degraded world. While Fritz has no animosity towards mutant and treats them as the status quo of the modern world, its programming sees Kayala as the return of the architects and system engineers. So as you can see on the screen there, that settles the player character relationships. Now we have 2 non-player character relationships to determine. We need 1 NPC Fritz hates, and 1 NPC Fritz wants to keep safe. Where the PC relationships are discussed between the players, the NPC relationships are discussed with the game master. I intentionally left the name of the hated NPC blank, but you can see the reason for Fritz's feelings towards that NPC. As for the NPC Fritz wants to protect, I ended up selecting something similar to one of the options suggested in the book. It honestly fit my vision of Fritz, so I tweaked it and went with it. Ultimately, relationships are not difficult to figure out. They are not complicated unless you overthink them, and they add an interesting and meaningful aspect to the game. Let's finally finish this slide with step 11. In step 11, we determine Fritz NEC-099's big dream, something it wants more than anything in the world. Even with newfound self-awareness, Fritz understands that robots are the creation of humans from the old age. With that in mind, as long as modern humans mutant humans and mutant animals accept sentient robots for what they are and allow self-aware robots who want to be free, an autonomous habitat in which to live in peace, Fritz will be happy to not only live in peace but continue to provide security for those sentients who need it. Your character's big dream should be a lofty goal, one that keeps him or her or it adventuring. And now there's only one step left. The last step is to select the character's one item. However, it's not one item, except for when it is one item. Anyway, robots don't need to worry about food and water, and energy is provided by the network, so it's not like Fritz needs a lot. The security robot starts with a lock bolt, which is used to restrain other robots, and either a stun baton or a stun gun. While I like ranged weapons, I felt the stun baton was more appropriate. The stun baton is an interesting weapon because it ignores most armor and inflicts trauma to stability, not servos. The lock bolt, once attached, makes it very difficult for a robot restrained by it to take any actions. Interesting, there's no character creation step to describe the character's home, or base station as it's called in Mutant Mechatron, so it seems we're done constructing Fritz NEC-099. With the exception of the collaborative step, Step 10, creating a character in Mutant Mechatron is pretty straightforward. In fact, it's probably the easiest mutant character to create, even if there are more choices to consider, such as the 3 chassis parts. But all told, you can create a Mutant Mechatron character in just a few minutes, even considering the relationships. For now, we leave Fritz NEC-099 to discover the secrets of its newfound self-awareness, while it saves its home from catastrophe. As for us, we move on to the final character in the series, Judicator Kayala Fortescu of Mutant Elysium, and I hope to see you there. If you like this character creation video and want to see more of them, please spend an energy point on that like button and leave a substantive comment below. Subscribe to Legion of Myth for more tabletop RPG videos and to be notified of our RPG Digest and Friday Night Chill streams. And help us reach 4,000 subscribers so we can have another amazing giveaway. We believe that role-playing games should take place in fantastic worlds and that the focus of any tabletop group should be on role-playing and having a good time. Thus, the core values of #RPGate are escapism, not representation, entertainment over activism, and natural, organic inclusion, not forced diversity. Thank you very much, and I hope you have a wonderful day.